CLEP History Western Civilization 2. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History Western Civilization 2 clue? European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Option A. End of the Cold War. Option B. Munich Conference. Option C. Spanish Armada. Option D. Compromise of 1877. The correct answer is option B. Munich Conference. This points to Munich Conference because the agreement became a symbol of failed appeasement. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse. Ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. And compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Question 2. How would a CLEP history question most likely test this clue? Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763? Option A. Salutary neglect. Option B. Secession. Option C. Martin Luther. Option D. Reign of Terror. The correct answer is option A. Salutary neglect. This points to salutary neglect because loose enforcement helped colonists develop habits of self-government. Secession points instead to Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Martin Luther points instead to a monk-challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. And Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History Western Civilization 2? Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Option A. Bolsheviks. Option B. Compromise of 1850. Option C. Urbanization. Option D. Northern Renaissance. The correct answer is option B. Compromise of 1850. This points to Compromise of 1850 because the package tried to manage sectional conflict after the Mexican Cession. Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Urbanization points instead to industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. And Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History Western Civilization 2, which answer fits this clue? Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Option A. Reign of Terror. Option B. Estates-General. Option C. Triangular trade. Option D. Trail of Tears. The correct answer is option D. Trail of Tears. This points to Trail of Tears because the event shows the human cost of Indian removal policy. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Estates-General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. And Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Question 5. Where does this clue point in CLEP history content? A historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Option A. Nullification crisis. Option B. Darwinism. Option C. Thesis statement. Option D. Primary source. The correct answer is option C. Thesis statement. This points to thesis statement because a thesis guides interpretation rather than merely listing facts. Nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. And primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History Western Civilization 2 clue. Many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. Option A. Montgomery bus boycott. Option B. English Civil War. Option C. Manifest Destiny. Option D. Boston Tea Party. The correct answer is option C. Manifest Destiny. This points to manifest destiny because the idea justified expansion while increasing conflict over land and slavery. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. And Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. Old-regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change? Option A. Alien and Sedition Acts. Option B. House of Burgesses. Option C. French Revolution. Option D. 30 Years' War. The correct answer is option C. French Revolution. This points to French Revolution because the revolution transformed France and Europe. Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists' restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia Assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government, and 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP-style clue. An abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Option A. Harlem Renaissance. Option B. Abolitionism. Option C. John Brown's Raid. Option D. Chronology. The correct answer is option C. John Brown's Raid. This points to John Brown's Raid because the raid increased sectional fear before the Civil War. Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Abolitionism points instead to reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 9. Determine which answer explains the CLEP history. Western civilization. 2 clue. Artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. Option A. End of the Cold War. Option B. Yorktown. Option C. Aristotle. Option D. Romanticism. The correct answer is option D. Romanticism. This points to Romanticism because the movement reacted against strict rationalism and industrial society. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse. Ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Option A. Salutary neglect. Option B. Indian Removal Act. Option C. Pearl Harbor. Option D. Mayflower Compact. The correct answer is option D. Mayflower Compact. This points to Mayflower Compact because it showed an early colonial commitment to majority rule and civil government. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi, and Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Question 11. Pinpoint the best answer for this history clue. A congressional faction demanded stronger Reconstruction protections for freed people. Option A. Galileo. Option B. Nullification crisis. Option C. War of 1812. Option D. Radical Republicans. The correct answer is option D. Radical Republicans. This points to Radical Republicans because they pushed for civil rights and tighter terms for former Confederates. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs, and War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. The United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. Option A. Atomic bombings. Option B. Spanish-American War. Option C. Emancipation Proclamation. Option D. John Brown's Raid. The correct answer is option B. Spanish-American War. This points to Spanish-American War because the war marked a shift toward American imperial power. Atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Emancipation Proclamation points instead to Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union, and John Brown's Raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Question 13. Compare the options and choose the one tied to this clue. African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Option A. Abolitionism. Option B. Harlem Renaissance. Option C. Machiavelli. Option D. Lend-Lease. The correct answer is option B, Harlem Renaissance. This points to Harlem Renaissance because the movement celebrated black culture and creativity. Abolitionism points instead to reformers demanded the end of slavery through moral and political arguments. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince, and Lend-Lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Question 14. Connect this CLEP history Western civilization to clue to the right answer. US escalation caused major protest and debate over containment. Option A, Stalin. Option B, Proclamation of 1763. Option C, Vietnam War. Option D, Weimar Republic. The correct answer is option C, Vietnam War. This points to Vietnam War because the conflict deeply divided American society. Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Proclamation of 1763 points instead to Britain tried to limit colonial settlement west of the Appalachians, and Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. Political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Option A, Fall of Western Rome. Option B, Bill of Rights. Option C, Point of View. Option D, Homestead Act. The correct answer is option A, Fall of Western Rome. This points to Fall of Western Rome because the fall marks a major transition to medieval Europe. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Point of View points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience, and Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue. Voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Option A, Homestead Act. Option B, 15th Amendment. Option C, Bill of Rights. Option D, Julius Caesar. The correct answer is option B, 15th Amendment. This points to 15th Amendment because the amendment aimed to protect black male suffrage during Reconstruction. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse, and Julius Caesar points instead to a Roman general's dictatorship helped end the Republic. Question 17. Interpret this clue and choose the best answer. A Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Option A, Truman Doctrine. Option B, John Brown's Raid. Option C, Machiavelli. Option D, Scientific Revolution. The correct answer is option C, Machiavelli. This points to Machiavelli because his work separated politics from traditional moral advice. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States' promised aid to resist communist expansion. John Brown's Raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners, and Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. A deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Option A, stagflation. Option B, Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option C, causation. Option D, Shays Rebellion. The correct answer is option B, Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. This points to Triangle Shirtwaist Fire because the disaster exposed dangerous industrial working conditions. Stagflation points instead to the 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth. Causation points instead to historians explain how one development helped produce another, and Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Option A, English Civil War. Option B, periodization. Option C, Glorious Revolution. Option D, women's suffrage. The correct answer is option C, Glorious Revolution. This points to Glorious Revolution because the event limited monarchy and supported constitutional government. English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. Periodization points instead to history is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points, and women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. The United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Option A, Monroe Doctrine. Option B, Gettysburg. Option C, Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option D, Byzantine Empire. The correct answer is option A, Monroe Doctrine. This points to Monroe Doctrine because the doctrine asserted a U.S. role in the Western Hemisphere. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination, and Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Question 21. Match this CLEP History Western Civilization 2 clue with the correct answer. Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Option A, Council of Trent. Option B, Justinian Code. Option C, Fascism. Option D, Copernicus. The correct answer is option B, Justinian Code. This points to Justinian Code because the code influenced later European legal systems. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders' clarified doctrine and Reformed church practices. Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism, and Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. Question 22. Distinguish the correct answer from similar history topics. A later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Option A, Compromise of 1850. Option B, Weimar Republic. Option C, Secondary source. Option D, 17th Amendment. The correct answer is option C, Secondary source. This points to secondary source because secondary sources synthesize evidence after the fact. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems, and 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Question 23. Locate the correct choice for this CLEP clue. Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I. Option A, Mussolini. Option B, Columbian Exchange. Option C, women's suffrage. Option D, Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option A, Mussolini. This points to Mussolini because his regime became an early model of fascist rule. Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. A political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation. Option A, Cotton Gin. Option B, Federalist Papers. Option C, Watergate. Option D, Petrarch. The correct answer is option C, Watergate. This points to Watergate because the scandal raised concerns about executive power and accountability. Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power, and Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Question 25. Decide which option this CLEP history clue describes. Fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. Option A, United Nations. Option B, Council of Trent. Option C, Intolerable Acts. Option D, Red Scare. The correct answer is option D, Red Scare. This points to Red Scare because the panic reflected anxiety over revolution, labor unrest, and immigration. United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders' clarified doctrine and Reformed church practices, and Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Question 26. Evaluate the options and choose the one that fits. Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Option A, Peloponnesian War. Option B, Embargo Act. Option C, Homestead Act. Option D, Scholasticism. The correct answer is option A, Peloponnesian War. This points to Peloponnesian War because the conflict damaged Greek political stability. Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. And scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology. Question 27. Consider this clue and identify the historical match. A Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Option A, Constantine. Option B, point of view. Option C, Jane Addams. Option D, American system. The correct answer is option A, Constantine. This points to Constantine because his policies changed the status of Christianity in the empire. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Jane Addams points instead to a reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor, and American system points instead to Clep promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Question 28. Predict the answer. A CLEP item is targeting a document or artifact comes from the time being studied. Option A, primary source. Option B, Bacon's Rebellion. Option C, periodization. Option D, Columbian Exchange. The correct answer is option A, primary source. This points to primary source because primary sources provide direct evidence from a historical period. Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Periodization points instead to history is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points, and Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea. Option A, Townshend Acts. Option B, Reign of Terror. Option C, Calvinism. Option D, Japanese-American internment. The correct answer is option A, Townshend Acts. This points to Townshend Acts because the acts renewed colonial protests against imperial taxation. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Calvinism points instead to a Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities, and Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. Religious revival stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority. Option A, Great Awakening. Option B, Federalist Papers. Option C, Spanish Armada. Option D, Civil Rights Act of 1964. The correct answer is option A, Great Awakening. This points to Great Awakening because the revival shaped colonial religion and encouraged more individual religious choice. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige, and Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. Federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests in voting. Option A, Chinese Exclusion Act. Option B, Hammurabi's Code. Option C, Compromise of 1850. Option D, Voting Rights Act of 1965. The correct answer is option D, Voting Rights Act of 1965. This points to Voting Rights Act of 1965 because the act protected voting access, especially in the South. Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy, and Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Question 32. Assess the clue and select the correct history term. Evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Option A, Great Society. Option B, European coal and steel community. Option C, Progressive Era. Option D, Source bias. The correct answer is option D, source bias. This points to source bias because recognizing bias improves historical interpretation. Great Society points instead to Lyndon Johnson's programs targeted poverty, education, healthcare and civil rights. European coal and steel community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II, and Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. Radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Option A, Bolsheviks. Option B, 3-5 Compromise. Option C, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option D, Compromise of 1850. The correct answer is option A, Bolsheviks. This points to Bolsheviks because they created a communist government under Lenin. 3-5 Compromise points instead to enslaved people were counted partially for representation and taxation. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased Northern anti-slavery feeling, and Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Question 34. Infer the answer from this short CLEP clue. Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Option A, cotton gin. Option B, Diocletian. Option C, Mussolini. Option D, Estates minus General. The correct answer is option A, cotton gin. This points to cotton gin because the invention strengthened the cotton economy and deepened dependence on enslaved labor. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and Estates minus General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. Treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Option A, Mexican minus American War. Option B, liberalism. Option C, Hammurabi's Code. Option D, Peace of Westphalia. The correct answer is option D, Peace of Westphalia. This points to Peace of Westphalia because the settlement reshaped European diplomacy. Mexican minus American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion. Liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government, and Hammurabi's Code points instead to a Babylonian law code showed written legal rules and social hierarchy. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. Analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time. Option A, Compromise of 1877. Option B, Triangular Trade. Option C, Continuity and Change. Option D, 15th Amendment. The correct answer is option C, Continuity and Change. This points to continuity and change because this skill is common in history interpretation. Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And 15th Amendment points instead to voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Option A, Prohibition. Option B, Embargo Act. Option C, Bolsheviks. Option D, Alien and Sedition Acts. The correct answer is option B, Embargo Act. This points to Embargo Act because the policy hurt American merchants and showed trade minus war risks. Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment, banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917, and Alien and Sedition Acts points instead to Federalists restricted criticism and immigration during conflict with France. Question 38. Practice this CLEP- style match. Drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression. Option A, 100 Years' War. Option B, Dust Bowl. Option C, Socrates. Option D, Renaissance humanism. The correct answer is option B, Dust Bowl. This points to Dust Bowl because the disaster worsened rural suffering and migration. Hundred Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry, and Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. Colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Option A, Hebrew monotheism. Option B, scientific revolution. Option C, decolonization. Option D, Peace of Augsburg. The correct answer is option C, decolonization. This points to decolonization because the process ended many European empires. Hebrew monotheism points instead to belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion. Scientific revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature, and Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. Southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Option A, Peace of Westphalia. Option B, Scholasticism. Option C, secession. Option D, Marshall Plan. The correct answer is option C, secession. This points to secession because secession led directly to the Civil War. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology, and Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. A Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities. Option A, Newton. Option B, Marbury v. Madison. Option C, United Nations. Option D, Calvinism. The correct answer is option D, Calvinism. This points to Calvinism because Calvin's ideas influenced reform movements across Europe. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 42. Solve this quick history clue. Authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Option A, Aristotle. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, Scientific Revolution. Option D, Fascism. The correct answer is option D, Fascism. This points to fascism because fascist movements emphasized state power, hierarchy, and militarism. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. Events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time. Option A, Bacon's Rebellion. Option B, Corroboration. Option C, Persian Empire. Option D, Historical Context. The correct answer is option D, Historical Context. This points to historical context because context helps explain why people acted as they did. Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Corroboration points instead to historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. And Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Question 44. Find the option that best fits this clue. Pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long-lasting civilization. Option A, Justinian Code. Option B, atomic bombings. Option C, ancient Egypt. Option D, Federal Reserve Act. The correct answer is option C, ancient Egypt. This points to ancient Egypt because Egypt's stability depended heavily on the Nile and centralized kingship. Justinian Code points instead to Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Question 45. Remember which topic connects to this clue. A severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Option A, Aristotle. Option B, Reaganomics. Option C, Great Depression. Option D, Copernicus. The correct answer is option C, Great Depression. This points to Great Depression because the crisis transformed expectations of federal economic responsibility. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher-emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Reaganomics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy, and Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. Question 46. Highlight the answer described by this clue. A French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society. Option A, printing press. Option B, lend-lease. Option C, women's suffrage. Option D, Dreyfus Affair. The correct answer is option D, Dreyfus Affair. This points to Dreyfus Affair because the affair revealed tensions in the Third Republic. Printing press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly. Lend-lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II, and women's suffrage points instead to women organized for voting rights and legal equality. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. A Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Option A, John Brown's raid. Option B, Jacksonian democracy. Option C, World War I alliances. Option D, storming of the Bastille. The correct answer is option D, storming of the Bastille. This points to storming of the Bastille because the event became a symbol of revolutionary action. John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man, and World War I alliances points instead to entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Question 48. Clarify which history topic this clue describes. Mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Option A, fascism. Option B, Calvinism. Option C, Industrial Revolution. Option D, salutary neglect. The correct answer is option C, Industrial Revolution. This points to Industrial Revolution because industrialization shifted Europe toward factory-based production. Fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Calvinism points instead to a Protestant movement emphasized predestination and disciplined communities, and salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Option A, Federal Reserve Act. Option B, Black Death. Option C, Hebrew monotheism. Option D, Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option A, Federal Reserve Act. This points to Federal Reserve Act because the act reshaped U.S. banking and monetary policy. Black Death points instead to plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Hebrew monotheism points instead to belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Option A, Scopes Trial. Option B, Yalta Conference. Option C, Nationalism. Option D, Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option B, Yalta Conference. This points to Yalta Conference because the meeting shaped post-war divisions and Cold War tensions. Scopes Trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 51. Differentiate in CLEP history Western Civilization 2, which answer fits this clue? Popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. Option A, investiture controversy. Option B, muckrakers. Option C, monarchism. Option D, Louisiana Purchase. The correct answer is option A, investiture controversy. This points to investiture controversy because the conflict tested church and state power in medieval Europe. Muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Monarchy points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society, and Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. A philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. Option A, triangular trade. Option B, Italian unification. Option C, John Brown's raid. Option D, Plato. The correct answer is option D, Plato. This points to Plato because his works shaped idealist philosophy and political thought. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy, and John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Question 53. Question: which answer a CLEP item would expect? Farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Option A, atomic bombings. Option B, stagflation. Option C, Shays Rebellion. Option D, chronology. The correct answer is option C, Shays Rebellion. This points to Shays Rebellion because the uprising convinced many leaders that the national government needed more power. Atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Stagflation points instead to the 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth, and chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. Post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Option A, thesis statement. Option B, industrial revolution. Option C, conservatism. Option D, Great Compromise. The correct answer is option C, conservatism. This points to conservatism because conservatives sought stability after revolution and war. Thesis statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Industrial revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies, and Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states. Question 55. Revisit this history clue and choose its match. European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Option A, Compromise of 1877. Option B, New Imperialism. Option C, Cotton Gin. Option D, European Union. The correct answer is option D, European Union. This points to European Union because the EU grew from post-war cooperation. Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. New Imperialism points instead to European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century, and Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Question 56. Discover in CLEP history Western Civilization 2, which answer fits this clue. Evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. Option A, Berlin Conference. Option B, Galileo. Option C, Darwinism. Option D, Louisiana Purchase. The correct answer is option C, Darwinism. This points to Darwinism because Darwin's ideas influenced science and social debates. Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views, and Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. The New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Option A, Social Security Act. Option B, Washington's neutrality policy. Option C, Homestead Act. Option D, Spanish Armada. The correct answer is option A, Social Security Act. This points to Social Security Act because the law built a lasting federal social safety net. Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements. And Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Question 58. Read the clue and select the matching topic. A reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor? Option A. Socialism. Option B. Byzantine Empire. Option C. Sputnik. Option D. Jane Addams. The correct answer is option D. Jane Addams. This points to Jane Addams because settlement houses addressed problems of industrial cities. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture, and Sputnik points instead to the Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Question 59. Complete in CLEP History Western Civilization 2, which answer fits this clue? Conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Option A. War of 1812. Option B. Mayflower Compact. Option C. Newton. Option D. Storming of the Bastille. The correct answer is option A. War of 1812. This points to War of 1812 because the war reinforced national pride and highlighted trade and maritime issues. Mayflower Compact points instead to Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics, and Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Question 60. Decode this history clue and choose the right answer. Industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. Option A. Urbanization. Option B. Persian Empire. Option C. Bill of Rights. Option D. Mexican-American War. The correct answer is option A. Urbanization. This points to urbanization because city growth created new social problems and opportunities. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse, and Mexican-American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. Accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Option A. Transcontinental Railroad. Option B. Agricultural Revolution. Option C. Harlem Renaissance. Option D. McCarthyism. The correct answer is option D. McCarthyism. This points to McCarthyism because the term refers to anti-communist suspicion and aggressive investigations. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Agricultural Revolution points instead to improved farming, increased food production before industrialization, and Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. A long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. Option A. 100 Years' War. Option B. Spanish-American War. Option C. New imperialism. Option D. Muckrakers. The correct answer is option A. 100 Years' War. This points to 100 Years' War because the war changed military tactics and royal power. Spanish-American War points instead to the United States defeated Spain and emerged with overseas territories. New imperialism points instead to European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century, and muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Question 63. Rank the choices by relevance and pick the best match. Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Option A. GI Bill. Option B. Romanticism. Option C. Social Security Act. Option D. Weimar Republic. The correct answer is option D. Weimar Republic. This points to Weimar Republic because its weakness helped create conditions for Nazi rise. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression, and Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Question 64. Prioritize the clue and select the correct history answer. New foods, animals, diseases and peoples moved between the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Option A, Bill of Rights. Option B, Socrates. Option C, Columbian Exchange. Option D, Prohibition. The correct answer is option C, Columbian Exchange. This points to Columbian Exchange because it describes the widespread biological and cultural exchange after 1492. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Socrates points instead to a philosopher questioned assumptions and emphasized ethical inquiry, and Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Question 65. Focus on the clue and pick the correct option. The United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Option A, Harlem Renaissance. Option B, Iconoclasm. Option C, Korean War. Option D, Lend-Lease. The correct answer is option D, Lend-Lease. This points to Lend-Lease because the policy moved the nation away from strict neutrality. Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire, and Korean War points instead to a Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. Historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Option A, Berlin Conference. Option B, GI Bill. Option C, salutary neglect. Option D, economic interpretation. The correct answer is option D, economic interpretation. This points to economic interpretation because economic factors often shape political and social developments. Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II, and salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Question 67. Apply your CLEP history knowledge to this clue. Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Option A, 19th Amendment. Option B, Townshend Acts. Option C, D-Day. Option D, Thesis Statement. The correct answer is option C, D-Day. This points to D-Day because the invasion opened a major Western front against Nazi Germany. 19th Amendment points instead to women gained constitutional protection for voting rights. Townshend Acts points instead to Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea, and Thesis Statement points instead to a historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? A canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. Option A, point of view. Option B, triangular trade. Option C, Martin Luther. Option D, Erie Canal. The correct answer is option D, Erie Canal. This points to Erie Canal because it helped link Western farms to Eastern markets. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor. And Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 69. Promptly recognize which answer fits this clue. Rapid industrial growth could deepen inequality and political corruption. Option A, Chinese Exclusion Act. Option B, point of view. Option C, Gilded Age. Option D, American system. The correct answer is option C, Gilded Age. This points to Gilded Age because the term describes late 19th-century prosperity mixed with serious social problems. Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882. Point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience, and American system points instead to Clep promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Question 70. Smartly select a best historical match, a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Option A, Gettysburg. Option B, 30 Years' War. Option C, 17th Amendment. Option D, Renaissance humanism. The correct answer is option B, 30 Years' War. This points to 30 Years' War because the war devastated Central Europe and ended with the Peace of Westphalia. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters, and Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Question 71. Swiftly confirm the answer tied to this clue. Improved farming increased food production before industrialization? Option A, Agricultural Revolution. Option B, Progressive Era. Option C, Chronology. Option D, Investiture Controversy. The correct answer is option A, Agricultural Revolution. This points to agricultural revolution because higher productivity supported population growth and urban labor. Progressive era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Chronology points instead to events are placed in correct time order, and investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops. Question 72. Diligently review and choose the matching answer. The first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Option A, Jamestown. Option B, Articles of Confederation. Option C, Pax Romana. Option D, Agricultural Revolution. The correct answer is option B, Articles of Confederation. This points to Articles of Confederation because its weaknesses helped lead to calls for a stronger constitution. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Pax Romana points instead to the Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity, and Agricultural Revolution points instead to improved farming increased food production before industrialization. Question 73. Immediately decide which option. The clue describes resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, Scopes Trial. Option B, Medieval Universities. Option C, Embargo Act. Option D, Stonewall Uprising. The correct answer is option D, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Scopes Trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. Medieval Universities points instead to schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate, and Embargo Act points instead to Jefferson restricted foreign trade to pressure Britain and France. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. Clep promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Option A, Yorktown. Option B, Athenian democracy. Option C, American system. Option D, economic interpretation. The correct answer is option C, American system. This points to American system because the plan aimed to strengthen national economic development. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Athenian democracy points instead to citizens participated directly in political decision-making, and economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Option A, Townsend Acts. Option B, Monarchy. Option C, War of 1812. Option D, Holocaust. The correct answer is option D, Holocaust. This points to Holocaust because the genocide became a central moral catastrophe of World War II. Townsend Acts points instead to Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea. Monarchy points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society, and War of 1812 points instead to conflict with Britain strengthened American nationalism despite mixed military results. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading this CLEP-style clue? Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Option A, Montgomery bus boycott. Option B, John Brown's raid. Option C, Peace of Augsburg. Option D, Sherman Antitrust Act. The correct answer is option D, Sherman Antitrust Act. This points to Sherman Antitrust Act because the law became an early federal tool against trusts. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners, and Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Question 77. Think through this clue and identify the answer. Historians explain how one development helped produce another. Option A, Boston Tea Party. Option B, causation. Option C, Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option D, atomic bombings. The correct answer is option B, causation. This points to causation because causation connects events rather than just listing dates. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire points instead to a deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. And atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits. A heliocentric model placed the Sun at the center of the solar system. Option A, Copernicus. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Jane Addams. Option D, Fall of the Berlin Wall. The correct answer is option A, Copernicus. This points to Copernicus because his theory challenged geocentric astronomy. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Jane Addams points instead to a reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor, and Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select the correct option. Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. Option A, Bacon's Rebellion. Option B, Northern Renaissance. Option C, Red Scare. Option D, Missouri Compromise. The correct answer is option D, Missouri Compromise. This points to Missouri Compromise because the compromise temporarily managed sectional conflict over slavery. Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe, and Red Scare points instead to fear of radicals and communism led to raids and restrictions after World War I. Question 80. Study this clue and choose the matching history term. Revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power. Option A, Fall of Western Rome. Option B, Spanish Armada. Option C, Russian Revolution. Option D, Congress of Vienna. The correct answer is option C, Russian Revolution. This points to Russian Revolution because the revolution created the first communist state. Fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Spanish Armada points instead to Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige, and Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answer. Colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Option A, mercantilism. Option B, intolerable acts. Option C, 30 Years' War. Option D, Montesquieu. The correct answer is option A, mercantilism. This points to mercantilism because the system treated colonies as sources of wealth for an imperial power. Intolerable acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 82. Drill this history clue and pick the best match. Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Option A, Cotton Gin. Option B, Indian Removal Act. Option C, conservatism. Option D, German unification. The correct answer is option D, German unification. This points to German unification because the new German Empire became a major European power. Cotton gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Indian Removal Act points instead to federal policy forced many native peoples west of the Mississippi, and conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Question 83. Speedily review and select the answer tied to this clue. The Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states. Option A, mercantilism. Option B, New Deal. Option C, 17th Amendment. Option D, Great Compromise. The correct answer is option D, Great Compromise. This points to Great Compromise because the compromise settled a major dispute at the convention. Mercantilism points instead to colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform, and 17th Amendment points instead to senators became elected directly by voters. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. History is divided into meaningful eras based on patterns and turning points. Option A, 14th Amendment. Option B, corroboration. Option C, United Nations. Option D, periodization. The correct answer is option D, periodization. This points to periodization because periodization helps organize large amounts of content. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Corroboration points instead to historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Option A, Gettysburg. Option B, Jamestown. Option C, Peace of Westphalia. Option D, Emancipation Proclamation. The correct answer is option D, Emancipation Proclamation. This points to Emancipation Proclamation because it shifted the Civil War toward a war against slavery. Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions, and Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. Arms races and war planning contributed to tensions before World War I. Option A, Reign of Terror. Option B, Congress of Vienna. Option C, militarism. Option D, French Revolution. The correct answer is option C, militarism. This points to militarism because militarism was one cause of pre-war instability. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat, and French Revolution points instead to old regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. Entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Option A, World War I alliances. Option B, Mussolini. Option C, Compromise of 1877. Option D, 100 Years' War. The correct answer is option A, World War I alliances. This points to World War I alliances because alliance systems helped escalate conflict in 1914. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I. Compromise of 1877 points instead to the disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South, and 100 Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. Question 88. Sort the choices and pick the one this clue describes. Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Option A, iconoclasm. Option B, Hitler. Option C, Wilmot Proviso. Option D, Pearl Harbor. The correct answer is option A, iconoclasm. This points to iconoclasm because the controversy shows tensions over worship and authority. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Wilmot Proviso points instead to a proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico, and Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. The United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Option A, atomic bombings. Option B, Peloponnesian War. Option C, Dust Bowl. Option D, Jane Addams. The correct answer is option A, atomic bombings. This points to atomic bombings because the bombings helped end the Pacific War and began the nuclear age. Peloponnesian War points instead to Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Dust Bowl points instead to drought and soil erosion devastated Great Plains farmers during the Depression, and Jane Addams points instead to a reformer-founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue. The Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I. Option A. Monroe Doctrine. Option B. Lenin. Option C. Secession. Option D. Sputnik. The correct answer is option B. Lenin. This points to Lenin because his leadership shaped early Soviet policy. Monroe Doctrine points instead to the United States warned European powers against new colonization in the Americas. Secession points instead to southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election, and Sputnik points instead to the Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Question 91. Mark the best response to this CLEP clue. A Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Option A. Appeasement. Option B. Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option C. Re-economics. Option D. Petrarch. The correct answer is option D. Petrarch. This points to Petrarch because he is often associated with early Renaissance humanism. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased northern anti-slavery feeling, and Re-economics points instead to tax cuts, deregulation, and supply-side ideas shaped 1980s economic policy. Question 92. Pick the option that completes this history clue. Tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Option A. Monorealism. Option B. Continuity and change. Option C. Iconoclasm. Option D. Dawes Act. The correct answer is option D. Dawes Act. This points to Dawes Act because the policy reduced tribal land holdings and attacked communal ownership. Monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society. Continuity and change points instead to analysis compares what stayed the same and what shifted over time, and iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue. German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Option A. Peace of Augsburg. Option B. Sharecropping. Option C. Mussolini. Option D. Petrarch. The correct answer is option A. Peace of Augsburg. This points to Peace of Augsburg because the settlement temporarily managed religious division in the Holy Roman Empire. Sharecropping points instead to freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and Petrarch points instead to a Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Option A. Stalin. Option B. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. Option C. Mussolini. Option D. Montesquieu. The correct answer is option A. Stalin. This points to Stalin because his policies transformed the USSR at enormous human cost. Triangle Shirtwaist Fire points instead to a deadly factory fire strengthened demands for workplace safety laws. Mussolini points instead to Italy's fascist leader built a dictatorship after World War I, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. Plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Option A. Nationalism. Option B. Black Death. Option C. World War I. Option D. Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option B. Black Death. This points to Black Death because the pandemic weakened labor systems and changed social relations. Nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. Laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Option A. Industrial Revolution. Option B. Investiture controversy. Option C. Jacksonian democracy. Option D. Newton. The correct answer is option D. Newton. This points to Newton because his work became a foundation of modern science. Industrial Revolution points instead to mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops, and Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. Reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Option A, Compromise of 1850. Option B, Russian Revolution. Option C, Intolerable Acts. Option D, Northern Renaissance. The correct answer is option D, Northern Renaissance. This points to Northern Renaissance because it often emphasized Christian learning and social criticism. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power, and Intolerable Acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Option A, Roman Republic. Option B, Jamestown. Option C, Manifest Destiny. Option D, Montgomery bus boycott. The correct answer is option B, Jamestown. This points to Jamestown because Jamestown became the first permanent English colony in North America. Roman Republic points instead to Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward, and Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. Question 99. Resolve in CLEP History Western Civilization 2, which answer fits this clue. Observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Option A, 15th Amendment. Option B, Revolutions of 1848. Option C, Byzantine Empire. Option D, Galileo. The correct answer is option D, Galileo. This points to Galileo because his work became a symbol of scientific conflict with authority. 15th Amendment points instead to voting rights could not be denied based on race, color, or previous servitude. Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe, and Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Option A, World War I alliances. Option B, end of the Cold War. Option C, Byzantine Empire. Option D, Aristotle. The correct answer is option B, end of the Cold War. This points to end of the Cold War because the event transformed global politics after 1991. World War I alliances points instead to entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Byzantine Empire points instead to the Eastern Roman Empire preserved Roman law and Greek culture, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification.